point of law, case number 125 CV 10536 by Level Up Magazine Investigative Report, Introduction Establishing Jurisdiction. Case number 125 CV 10536 is not an ordinary civil dispute. It is a matter of jurisdiction and recognition under the supreme law of the land. At issue is whether the United States continues to honor its binding obligations under Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution and Title 25 U.S. Code, Indian Affairs, obligations that remain active, enforceable, and paramount over all conflicting statutes. Article 6, the controlling clause. Article 6, Clause 2, known as the Supremacy Clause, declares treaties and federal law as the highest authority in the United States. Indigenous treaties and statutory protections under Title 25 cannot be set aside, diminished, or ignored by states or private parties. This case asserts that indigenous autochthonous peoples are not subject to discretionary recognition, but are protected under binding constitutional law and trust doctrine. Any misclassification or denial of their status constitutes a breach of federal duty. Title 25 and Federal Trust Responsibility. Title 25 establishes the framework for the federal government's trust responsibility. The U.S. holds a fiduciary obligation to safeguard the rights, lands, and estates of indigenous nations. That responsibility is legal, not symbolic. It creates enforceable duties. Case number 125 CV 10536 forces the court to confront whether these duties are being upheld or systematically violated through practice of misidentification, erasure, and obstruction. Title 25 and Federal Trust Responsibility. Title 25 establishes the framework for the federal government's trust responsibility. The U.S. holds a fiduciary obligation to safeguard the rights, lands, and estates of indigenous nations. That responsibility is legal, not symbolic. It creates enforceable duties. Case number 125 CV 10536 forces the court to confront whether these duties are being upheld or systematically violated through practice of misidentification, erasure, and obstruction. The Royal Proclamation of 1763 and international precedent. The Royal Proclamation of 1763, still recognized as a cornerstone of indigenous law, affirmed that indigenous nations hold legal title and standing as rightful possessors and custodians of their territories. This principle aligns with international doctrine, later codified in instruments such as the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, UNDRIP, which underscores rights to land, culture, and legal identity. Case number 125 CV 10536 invokes this continuity from colonial proclamations to the Constitution, to federal statutes, to present-day law. Indigenous identity theft as a legal breach. Central to the case is the concept of indigenous identity theft, the unlawful reclassification and misidentification of autochthonous Americans. This practice not only erases heritage, but also strips rightful protections under federal law. It is a fraudulent act with material consequences, denying communities their legal standing and estates. The remedy sought is restoration of status, correction of records, and enforcement of all protections owed under Article 6 and Title 25. Conclusion: restoring the rule of law. The point of law in case number 125 CV 10536 is not about special privileges. It is about the enforcement of existing obligations under the Constitution, statutes, treaties, and international law. The court is asked to affirm that 1. Article 6 and Title 25 remain supreme authority in all matters concerning indigenous nations. 2. Misclassification is unlawful and constitutes a breach of trust. Autochthonous peoples retain legal standing that predates and survives colonial systems. This case is not a plea for recognition, it is a demand for the court to uphold its oath, to enforce the law as it already stands, and to restore justice where it has been denied. Level Up magazine will continue monitoring this historic case, which represents not only a legal turning point, but a jurisdictional reset for Indigenous America.